Hi, Jacq Hackett here. This week I am right in the thick of one of the most complex phases of any consulting project, which is the analysis phase. And still, after nearly 19 years, it's always the most daunting phase of a project for me, because this is crunch time. This is where you really apply your best thinking in order to get some really good findings together for your client. And it's a really tricky thing to do. It's a very complex process. So, in my solo consultant masterclass program, step 6 is distill findings, and it was by far the most tricky, complex, difficult part of the program for me to produce because this is not a simple process. And so what I had to do, because I basically learned on the job over the years, and so I had to pull out all the processes from my head about what I do in that whole analysis phase in order to distill findings so that I could, make that a clear process for others. Anyway, it's generally a new learning curve for new consultants. Today I'm going to give you 3 tips that, hopefully will help you when you're in the analysis phase. The first is, and it seems so obvious, but go back to the brief. So you started out with a set of, perhaps there were evaluation questions, maybe there were terms of reference, there was a summary of what it was you were expected to problem solve and to find out. The very first step is go back and remind yourself of that, because it's really easy to get sidetracked and to come up with findings that aren't actually relevant to those initial terms of reference. So first step, absolutely go back to the brief, make sure you've got it clear in your head before you start the analysis. The second tip I want to give you is you need to rigorously go through all your information. Now, I really do mean rigorously. I know we're not doing research here, but we still need rigor. There's a lot at stake for your client and their organization. And throughout the project, you have gathered a lot of information. For me in this project, I've interviewed, 30 plus stakeholders, lengthy, telephone interviews with them. I've reviewed data. I've reviewed some quantitative data as well as some other documents, etc. There's a lot of information here, and it's really important that I go through it in detail. So don't assume that you understand, that you've got the findings just from actually doing, all the consultations, etc. Yes, of course, there will be themes that will have emerged along the way, but you really need to go back and look very rigorously, systematically at all that information again. And the final tip I have for you is you need to apply critical thinking. So a mistake that a lot of consultants make is they develop a really great set of themes that have come out of their processes, and they kind of stop there. And that is not enough. Your client's not, the themes are important, but that's not enough for your clients. The client really needs you to take that next step, apply really solid critical thinking to your themes and the things you've come out, that have come up out of the process for you. All that experience that you have, all the capacity, all the knowledge of the sector, all your knowledge of what works in organizations, you apply that, because really what you're getting to is, well, what does all this tell me? And that's the kind of high-level advice that your clients are looking for. So don't stop at themes. Make sure you really do apply that critical thinking and distill solid findings that are going to be really helpful to your client. So that's my 3 tips for analysis. It's a tough phase of any project, and I'm going to get right back to mine. And I hope these tips are helpful to you next time you're in that phase of a project. Have a good Friday.